passion of the people on stage. They're inspiring all these people, such an incredible turnout to listen to all these people.
I've come to this bookstore 4 or 5 times, and every time I walk away with another book.
I've been to festivals all over the world, but I've never been to a festival that is anything like it. It is more enjoyable, more exciting, more vibrant, and it's free.
It crosses boundaries and limits and heritages, and that is brilliant.
All the speakers, they made us so much clear and love for the literature more and more, and they updated us that what's the new upcoming, and I'm thankful to JLF.
And it's nice to see so many, especially young people, interested in literature. It's amazing to see how many of them just keep coming back and sitting through all the panels and taking down notes.
It's a very great thing to have this festival in Jaipur. So we come here, we get a lot of knowledge, we can cluster our knowledge here. Around 6 sessions, and whether it's Samvad or whether in Charbagh, everything together. Isn't it wonderful for each and every one to experience this? Especially the ones in school, to know that there is value in books and not always on the mobiles, sticking to it every time. Well, it is indeed the Kumbh of literature.
Very pleased with particularly how the performance poetry has gone. It's something I think we've been weak on in the past. We've had some very good sessions from the Arab world, some remarkable sessions from West Africa.
And what I love about JLF is that it makes space for poetry. Poetry is not often given as much time and love as it gets here.
Our duty, as we see it, is to bring the world to India and India to the world.
The only way to transform societies
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of our festival directors, advisors, and my colleagues at Team Bookarts, we welcome you all to the first Festival Directors Roundtable of 2021. As we gear up for the 8th edition of Jaipur BookMark JBM, held in parallel with the annual Jaipur Literature Festival virtually this year, we reinforce JBM's role as an important B2B segment aimed at developing and nurturing the business of books and literary and arts festivals across the world. This year, the festival will take place from 22nd to 25th February 2021. Today's session, a challenge to innovate. Alexandra Buchler, Amina Saeed, Janvi Prasad, Nick Barley, Sabine Iqbal, and Yasmin El-Rafa in conversation with Sanjoy K. Roy. Alexandra Buchler. Alexandra is the director of the European platform, Literature Across Frontiers, a literary translator, editor, and curator. She has collaborated with Indian writers and literary organizations for over a decade. Amina Saeed. Amina was managing director of Oxford University Press, Pakistan for 30 years. Currently, she is MD of Lightstones Publishers and the first woman in Pakistan to become head of a multinational and to be elected president of the Overseas Investors Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She began the movement of literature festivals in Pakistan and is founder of Adab Festival. Our next speaker, Janvi Prasad. Janvi is a former journalist who began her career with The Pioneer and moved on to electronic and new media with ANI, Reuters, BBC, and HTV Wales. She is festival director for Himalayan Echoes, Kumar Festival of Literature and Arts, and has written a graphic novel on young Gandhi. Nick Barley. Nick is a publisher, editor, and festival organizer. He has been director and chief executive of the Edinburgh International Book Festival since 2009. Barley has judged a variety of literary and cultural prizes. In 2017, he chaired the judging panel for the Man Booker International Prize. Since 2018, he has been a trustee of the Booker Prize Foundation. Our next speaker, Sabine Iqbal. Sabine is a senior journalist and author. His novel, shortlisted for Tata Live's first book award. His second novel, Shamal Days, will soon be published by HarperCollins. Sabine is the director of Mathrubhumi International Festival of Letters. Yasmin El-Rifa. Yasmin has helped produce the Palestine Festival of Literature since she's based in Cairo, where she works with the bilingual newspaper Madam Masr. Her first book, Radius, on account of militant feminist resistance to mass sexual violence during the Egyptian Revolution, will be published by Verso in 2022. In conversation with Sanjoy K. Roy. Sanjoy is an entrepreneur of the arts, is the managing director of Team Book Arts, producers of the Jaipur Literature Festival and JLF and 25 other festivals across the world, and is a founder trustee of Salam Balak Trust, providing support services for street and working children in Delhi. Roy works closely with various industry bodies and the government on policy issues in the cultural sector in India, and has lectured and collaborated with international universities such as University of Chicago, Harvard, MIT Media Lab, and the London School of Economics. This conversation will be followed by a Q&A. Please feel free to send in your questions. All our sessions will be available to view on our Facebook page and YouTube channel post the festival in February. Sanjoy, over to you.
Thanks so much, Suraj, and I couldn't be more delighted than to kick off this particular series with our wonderful speakers. As that emotional moment when I want to reach out and give each of you a hug, because we haven't been able to see each other or even speak with each other over the past few months. So lots of love and lots of affection streaming towards you through Zoom from Namita and me. This is an important opening series that we plan to take forward over the next few weeks. With the advent of COVID-19, every festival and across the world has had to be cancelled or postponed. The impact on the creative and cultural sector has been staggering. We just released the Testing the Temperature report earlier today, which shows that there's been an 80% impact on the creative economy in India alone. Artists and artisans, publishers and distributors, writers and performers are struggling to find a way to surmount the odds they face every day. But the lockdown has also provided us an opportunity to think, to dream, and perhaps to realize a new future for the arts and for festivals. I don't know about all of you, but what it did for us is that we stopped having to be busy being busy and just allowed us that time to think and reinvent ourselves back home here at Teamwork. Can we work together to realize this new evolution? Will bandwidth hold? Will the experience of a virtual festival change the world of the arts? Will technology be able to step up to the table and create a new experience? Not in the way that you do gaming or when you wear a 3D glasses, but will it become more tactile in the future? Are there new opportunities? To seek these answers and much more, we've come together with festival heads across the world to discuss, share, and innovate. But before I move to the session, may I please invite Namita Gokhale, who's an award-winning writer, publisher, festival director for the Jaipur Literature Festival. She's written over 20 books, including 11 works of fiction. Her recent novel, Jaipur Journals, was released in January 2020. Betrayed by Hope, a play on the tragic life of the poet Michael Madhusudan Dutt, was published in December 2020. She's a co-founder and co-director of the Jaipur Literature Festival and JBM. Namita, over to you.
Hello, all of you. Like Sanjoy, I wish I could give all of you a hug. Here's a virtual one, absolutely from my heart. It's wonderful to be reconnecting with friends, with colleagues, all those who stand by books, ideas, and literature. It's been a time of disruption and challenges, but also of learnings, and more importantly for me and for many of us, of unlearnings. We've had to unlearn so much. Digital technology has provided the solace of virtual community, but it's also posed the one question that hangs heavy on the air. And that question is the shadow of AI, the shadow of control. Who is telling our stories. Which are the stories that are forced into silence and amnesia around us? Who has power to control, to often distort the dominant narratives that we imbibe? We are each other's stories. Books and ideas endure. They sustain the human narrative. Like all of you, we at JLF have adapted to the times. I feel like an early amphibian, learning to swim, remembering to walk. William Dalrymple, Sanjoy Roy, and the incredible team at JLF have together helped to create and sustain 3 digital platforms. That is Brave New World, not so brave anymore, sadly, we are getting tired. Words Are Bridges, which is about multilingual spaces, and Voices of Faith. I'm hopeless at numbers, Sanjoy will tell you, but they have done well in terms of audiences and established a distinct identity. Although, of course, revenue streams are precarious, resources are an uphill climb. Our international editions at the British Library London and at the ones in Houston, New York, Boulder, Colorado, Toronto, so many places, they have reached out to audiences and time zones across locations in ways that the old physical models could not have ever done. We have, in some senses, built up what I'd call a living library. Yet, I confess even more today with all of you there in the audience, that I miss the old world, I miss the old times, the unspoken human connection, the non-verbal cues that tell us so much. We live at a time when the virtual world almost seems more real than the physical one. We are each other's stories. Books and ideas endure, they sustain the human enterprise. Like all of you, we at JLF are handling on, we are hanging on, we are carrying on. Observing you at your similar endeavors across the world has been inspirational. And all of us have learned so much from the community of those who platform books and ideas. It's strange to live and work from a lonely vertical, but we are not alone, not as long as we have books and each other. I look forward to many more collaborations and conjoint platforms and a worldwide web of stories. We can tell our own stories, relay our narratives, listen in and resonate as many voices as we can, wherever, however. And at JLF, our commitment to science, to understand the era of change is as strong as ever. So these are the areas we have been treading, and I'm eager to listen in to all of you who have done so much in your fields. And thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Namita, for that. Let me go straight in and ask Yasmin. Yasmin, will you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing, how you've been able to innovate, and some of the challenges that you faced in this period? Yasmin.
Sure, yeah. Well, we had to cancel our 2020 festival like so many others, but we may have been among the first because the festival was scheduled, I believe, for the 3rd week of March of 2020. So it was sort of, you know, we kept going with the preparation until it became absolutely clear that there was just no way to go forward. And the challenges for Palfest, I think, are, you know, very much part of what's so unique about Palfest as a literature festival, which is that it's very firmly rooted in the act of travel. What we do at Palfest is invite a group of international writers and artists from around the world to come to Palestine for a week and spend that week traveling throughout the land. So we spend a lot of time on the bus, we visit different cities, and through that travel experience, the guests have an opportunity to witness the diversity of Palestine, understand the occupation that Palestinians are living under, and connect, of course, to Palestinian authors and activists, both on and off the stage. So this act of movement and of essentially trying to overcome the restrictions of the occupation and going to different audiences in Palestine who are themselves often unable to travel even within the occupied territories with much ease, has been sort of essential to Palfest's entire working model since it began in the late 2000s. So we had to think a lot about how to try and, I suppose, overcome that and produce some kind of work, some kind of content, that could still be true to our aims. And our ideas right now are very much to do with the theme that we were programmed to cover for 2020. Both 2020 and 2021 actually were, the programming was built around the theme of global solidarity, and specifically South by South solidarity. So solidarity around the question of Palestine, but also around different struggles against various forms of colonialism worldwide. And so, of course, this is a very, very live and important series of questions today, with all of the different political convulsions that we see in various parts of the world. And we believe that it's incredibly important to keep Palestine as part of that conversation. And what we try to do is not to have Palestine sort of cornered off as some kind of exceptional set of circumstances. What is happening to Palestine in terms of the occupation, in terms of disenfranchisement, is very much part of various forces of...
In fact, Yasmin, just to sort of interrupt you, what we are hearing is that while Israel, the vaccine is being rolled out, this is not being made available to the Palestinian people in the occupied territories. We're also hearing as of today that the Prime Minister Netanyahu is going ahead with the building in the occupied territories, etc. Are some of these issues now being seen by the Palestinian festival? Is it being sort of reflected there? And are you looking at taking some of this digitally to be able to find a larger audience, not necessarily because of the cause, but because of what the stories that so many people have there waiting to be told?
Yes, absolutely. The way that the pandemic has played out within occupied Palestine has a lot to say. And what we're thinking of doing is, in addition to online discussions, online panels, is perhaps a podcast series in which we can bring our authors and guests, both intended for whenever we can resume our programming on the ground, and previous guests that we've hosted in Palestine, together with people who are currently there, to discuss various issues around, cultural production, around Israel's sort of apartheid approach to healthcare, and various other things.
Thank you, Yasmin. Sabine, sure. Let me come to you. You're coming to us from a state which has still got one of the highest rates of COVID-19 infection. And in fact, while your mortality rate is still comparatively low, you are way above the national and the international average right now. How has that impacted your festival planning, certainly for 2021? And what did you do in 2020 to be able to perhaps innovate and look at the struggles that you've had to go through? Sabine, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm there, right? Okay. Thank you, Sanjoy, for having me here. And unfortunately, MBI Mathrubhumi International Festival Letters has to be done in a different way, as in a different format. Because a physical festival is not quite possible at the moment in Kerala. And, we've been known for the location and the place, and as you said, the people, literature-loving people, and the hospitality that we have given to our guests. And so physical festival is very important to us, and I'm a tad disappointed. I'm an old school festival lover who wants the physical festival, which includes travels and meeting people, parties, and all that. But it is not possible at the moment, so we are not having a physical festival. But we will be having an online festival. We are having discussions, and how, since Mathrubhumi is a big media organization, we are thinking of ways in which our different wings can be used to put up this festival. So we are on the drawing board stage. We in the next week or so we'll have a concrete plan how we're going to do it. But certainly the festival is on, and of course, yeah, we have. But having said that, I'm very skeptical about this digital platform, because of course it opens new vistas and gives us more opportunities. But then for me, a festival is whether I can touch Sanjoy and hug you. That's a festival. That's where the magic happens.
Sabine, let me also ask you, Kerala is the most literate state in India. It's got 100% literacy. Yeah. But it also has a very large non-resident Indian population scattered across the globe, concentrated to a large extent in the Middle East. Tell us, during the pandemic, has this impacted the stories that have been coming out? Has it impacted publishing? Has it impacted bookstores? Give us a little sense of how this has come to play over the last 6 to 7 months.
Yeah, it has affected. Of course, it has affected bookstores. For example, my own book was my dream. My debut novel was, published in February, and in March we have the national, lockdown, and there's no sale. So it has definitely affected. I'm a victim. So I've been talking to a lot of bookstores, and they said yes, it's been picking up, but then not to the old glory of bookstores. But then we are hopeful it will pick up. Of course, we put up a brave face in the beginning of fighting pandemic, but of late we lost. It's gone out of our hands now because of the sheer number of expats who started to come back to Kerala from different parts of the world. We can't say no to them. We have to take them in. And then, that's a situation got worsened. So that's a situation. We are limping back to some sort of normalcy. But a festival with thousands of people, I don't think it's on the card now.
Thanks, Sabine. Well, what is amazing about Kerala, apart from its beaches and its cuisine, is just the hospitality and the nature and the sense of nature when you get there. And you can't do that on any kind of Zoom window. So you have to do it physically.
Certainly not. Yeah.
Nick, the world literally held its breath or the art world literally held its breath when we heard that the Edinburgh Festivals, the center of the arts world, had decided to cancel the 2020 edition. For many of us, the world came to an end in August. One felt bereft of not being able to go run in and run to a session and grab your seat and then come out and go to a show and then head to the international festival and go and catch a bit of science. How did you all sort of cope in that period, and how did you look at moving forward post this sort of cancellation in August?
Thank you, Sanjoy. It's lovely to see you, and it's lovely to see you, Namita, and all of you here today. I must say I'm missing you. We so look forward to seeing you in Edinburgh each summer, or in Jaipur in January. And you're right, the Edinburgh's festivals cancelled in unison. So 9 summer festivals all announced their cancellation at the same time. And for Scotland and for the city of Edinburgh, this was a big deal, not just because of the loss of culture, but because of the commercial issues that threw up. Edinburgh is a city which is built on culture and festivals as its foundation. And the cancellation of the festivals meant the loss of hundreds of millions of pounds of income. The city doubles in population every summer from international tourists and artists who join from all over the world. And so you can imagine the gnashing of teeth and the wailing of the money people and the politicians when they realized that we had to cancel. But I think what we as festival organizers had to do was to close our ears to that and to think about what really we exist for. And I think that the book festival in particular we realized that what we do is we bring together a community of people who love books, but a community of people who need to talk and discuss their place in the world and how books can help us think about that. I call it a community of thought. And we had to try to recreate a community of thought in an online form. And I've got to say that Jaipur, the work you've been doing has been a really great example of exactly that, of creating a community of thought through your different platforms that Namita was describing. And in Edinburgh, we tried to do the same thing. And we did it by building a studio in an empty building, which would otherwise have been used for fringe events, and 2 studios which were in enormous spaces where we could have all of the appropriate social distancing. And potentially, if the pandemic had played out in the best possible case, we could have had audience members in there as well, but that was not to be. But instead, we broadcast from our studios, where possible, we could bring authors into the studio and film them in a proper TV set. That gave us multiple camera angles. It gave us the opportunity for all sorts of technical innovations, which made the quality of the events really high. And so that was the basis of how we did it.
Nick, in many ways, I feel that, you know, the cancellation of the Edinburgh Festivals actually for the first time came home to a lot of the naysayers who used to rail against the festival. The fact that Edinburgh lost approximately 347 million of additional income into the city in August really woke up certainly your politicians, certainly Fiona Hislop and Nicola Sturgeon. And tell us a little bit about the kind of support that Creative Scotland and the Edinburgh, the Scottish Parliament was able to bring to bear on the creative economy and to the arts world in Scotland.
Yeah. Yes, it's true to say that the cancellation of the festivals immediately threw the festival organisations themselves into financial crisis right away. And the Fringe, the Edinburgh Fringe, for example, which is the biggest arts festival in the world, was immediately on the verge of extinction. And it required a large loan from the government, which it will have to pay back. But it was nevertheless millions of pounds of income which they needed in order just to pay the salaries of the employees. But it took a bit longer, but the Scottish government and the UK government came through with a significant package of support for artists across the UK. Overall, it's been £1.5 billion of support for artists and for arts organisations, which I have to say, the UK government has got many, many things wrong during this pandemic, but that's one thing they got absolutely right. They really backed the artists in this period of chaos, and that's allowed people to plan and think further ahead and start to imagine what we can do as live performance can return.
Thank you. I think what we've seen in Scotland has really become an example of the need to support artists and artisans and how you can kickstart at least sustain to some extent that whole community. But I'll come back to you in terms of some of the innovations that you have continued to do. Janvi, coming to you, you know, Nick talked about building communities. Now, you have this really bespoke festival tucked away in the Himalayas, which you have to drive out to get there in many hours. It's small, it's cozy, it's comfortable, it brings together community, it brings together people, who love literature. How did you cope with this in your homestead?
Thank you for having me today, Sanjoy and Namita ji. I think it is a historic session. It is the first series, as you mentioned, for 2021 in COVID times. So really privileged to be here with all of you. So right now I am in the mountains. I'm in Abbotsford, Nainital, in the Lake District of Kumaon. It's in the foothills of the Himalayas, really. And as Sanjoy just mentioned, that the festival is called Himalayan Echoes. It's a boutique festival, not more than 300 to 350 people attending it every year. Community is really close-knit. By the end of it, everybody knows each other, from the 20 to 25 odd authors that we have from across the world. You take something personally, emotionally from them, and you want to come back another year. But sadly, this year, 2020 could not happen. But really, we are a small festival. We are not a giant like the JLF or the Edinburgh Festival. So I think for me, really, it was, in some sense, I would say, I have to admit, it was a relief, really, of not having to go through that rigmarole of those 3 days of, just high part stress, which you have to go through. So I was pretty comfortable. I myself personally am quite a recluse, and this medium of technology is really easy for me to interact with and reach out to the world as we're doing today. So I was really happy about it in some way, that this is going to be a cakewalk. It was easy for me because, again, being a bespoke festival, we had about 10 sessions spread out over 2 days. There was a bit of a sort of a discussion which happened with our founder members and our team members. Should we go on the lines of JLF, like the Brave New World? Should we go and do a series over the next 3, 4, or 6 months and have continuous sessions? Or should we just stick to the format of the 3-day festival and just bring that out onto our screens for the people? And we chose the latter. We said we must stick to the 3-day dates that we have put out for the people. And we stuck to those dates. And it was a matter of, say, 3 months of hard work, of course, coordinating with the speakers, getting them to sort of figure out how we are going to shoot them through Zoom or through Google Meet. One of the other things which we sort of incorporated in our sessions was, unlike JLF, which is back-to-back series through the Brave New World format, I personally felt that it was getting too much to see people boxed up in a window like we are right now, and 2 people talking and 3 people talking, and we are supposed to listen, which is interesting. So if you're an author of merit and you're an international author, all eyes are on you, all ears are on you, and you want to listen to them. But what about the second rung or the third rung speakers? They really don't get that much of ear time or visual time, really. People will start watching something else on Instagram. So we decided that why not sort of curate 2-3 sessions in the outdoors? Why not go for a walk in the mountains? Why not walk around the beautiful lake and talk about the goddess Nanda Devi, after whom Nainital is named? Why not go into the fields where the farmers are and do a session where artisan cheese is being made? Why not bring the outdoors onto your screens? So have a conversation as well, and get to see other things as well. So I think we sort of had a mix of a Zoom call, also a Zoom session as well. We had a film put out there. We had these 2-3 sessions where the outdoors came indoors, the environment. We spoke about the environment as well in one of our sessions. So it was a good mix of those 8 sessions spread out over 2 days. In a matter of 4 or 5 hours, we were done. We had some local artists who sort of introduced through their song. They sang in the local language, which was really beautiful. And so as much as possible, I would say, in that short span of 5 hours onto the screen, so that people don't get bored, and their attention span is short when you're on the internet. So we sort of had 30-minute sessions, quick spans, and bang on, then it was just over. So I think overall for me, that experience was great. It finished within 2 days, but after the event got over, I thought to myself, I was lying down in bed and thinking, did it actually happen? So as Sabine is saying, that, the physical intimacy really is so important for a festival to be felt, to be remembered, and those emotions to come out, to meet people, to network, those bonds. So that, I was left with a feeling of emptiness, I have to say. Though the sessions were good, we reached out to a large number of people across India and the world. The numbers were larger. The hits on the sessions were much better. But it just left me empty, I would say. So technology is great. It's very comfortable. I don't mind doing it again next year. It's very easy to do. because it is a small festival. But if I have to do another physical one, I will do it, and God willing, I will in 2021.
But Janvi, what we hear is your neck of the woods, Nainital, is fairly COVID free. There's been very few cases that have been recorded. There's strict access to the state, and in some sense, you all are in a bubble.
Not really. We've had our fair share of COVID cases here. Because locally maybe people not, but the tourists coming in, or the one odd person coming from Delhi who might be a local here coming in and spreading it, it's happened. But the good thing is, because we are in a much open space as compared to Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, which are cities. I mean, we are open in an open space. There's fresh air, beautiful sunshine. You can go for the walks wherever you want. People are maintaining social distancing. So you know, the population is also less in that sense. So you are getting your space around you to do what you want to do, really, in the mountains. So so that's one advantage of being in the hills, really.
Thank you, Janvi. Amina, Nick talked about the fact that, you know, when the crisis hit the festivals in Edinburgh, there was the Scottish government who immediately stepped in and was able to provide some support, you know, financial support, etc. You obviously in Pakistan, or we here, don't have access to that. Tell us a little bit about how you have coped, and also what has this been an opportunity? We've found that in this new format, it's been much easier for us to have dialogues with writers of Pakistani origin or in Pakistan without the usual, oh, if you come here, we won't give you the visa, or we will beat up on whoever's organizing it. Tell us a little bit about how you have coped with the situation, and if you felt any advantages to COVID-19.
Thank you, Sanjoy, and thank you, Namita, for inviting me. Well, actually, you know, we unfortunately never got any support from the government for our festival. We used to rely on corporate sponsors and other such sponsors. Unfortunately, they too, because of COVID, and because they suffered so much in their own business, it was difficult to get sponsors later. But having said that, we have survived without having had any income this year, because we are a very small group. Fortunately, our festival was held in the first week of February this year, so we were able to have a physical festival before COVID hit us. So, however, this year it's very unlikely that we are going to have our festival. But what we have done is that, again, taking a leaf out of the Brave New World book, we've got we had a single sessions of festivals. For example, we had a session with Dr. Malia Lodhi, a well-known Pakistan economist and diplomat, that was very widely attended. And then we had another session with Prince Hassan of Jordan, and I must say, you know, his session was oversubscribed. And this is one of the advantages, that we were able to invite him, and he came because the session was on Zoom, and he spoke brilliantly. So we've had these odd sessions on Zoom. However, what I'm planning for later this year is actually, I mean, two things. You know, one is that I find that the physical festival is the best way, really. Because I still remember Vikram Seth had come to one of my festivals in Karachi, and the room was packed with people. And when he walked in, you know, I heard an intake of breath. I mean, people were so thrilled that Vikram Seth is actually there. I mean, this is something that you will not experience on Zoom. But of course, that's I think for this year, that's a choice we have. And what I'm planning for this year is actually two things. I mean, I want to take advantage of the fact that one can invite people from anywhere in the world, and not as you said, Sanjoy, bother about visas or other expenses. So we have a wide range of authors to invite. But I've also been advised by quite a few people that we should try and make it, because, in Pakistan, at least we feel there's a little fatigue of people attending festivals online. So I thought we would make it more entertaining for people to have a kind of a performance festival. I mean, rather than just panel discussions, we could maybe have some kind of performance, whether it's poetry recitation or whether it's dramatized readings. I thought that would add interest and attract people to attend it. Another thing that I'm planning for this year, which will be something new, I feel, is that I'm very conscious of the fact that my festival is in Karachi. And of course, one of my motives in beginning this festival was that it should become a movement in Pakistan. I have to say that I was inspired by the Jaipur Literature Festival. I attended the Jaipur Festival for the first time in 2009. And I was so thrilled and so impressed and so inspired that I felt I have to do this. Till then, there was nothing like a literature festival in Pakistan. In 2010, with a lot of help from the British Council, I organized the first literature festival, which was attended by 5,000 people. In 2018, we had 200,000 people. And I felt that, I have learned so much from Jaipur. Let me also share this with other people in Pakistan. And I tried to create a model. And I was delighted that, it spread to Islamabad, Lahore, Gwadar, Hyderabad, Faisalabad, all over Pakistan. It really did become a movement. However, I'm very conscious of the fact that it's still not being held in smaller areas. So my idea this year is to organize it in smaller areas. But again, it's difficult for us to go to all the smaller parts of Pakistan. So what I want to do is to identify some people who can become the organizers and curators, and somehow get them, help them organize their own festival. And also to encourage them to get the local artists and speakers, so that it's not just the big names who attend these festivals, but for every smaller area of Pakistan, especially in places like in rural areas, rural Sindh or rural Punjab, or rural sort of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area, invite people to organize their own festivals and maybe try and raise some funds to support them and train them how to do it. And these local festivals will have the local artists and writers. So that's my plan for this year.
Thank you, Amina. That was a great story of hope in the way that you've been able to work, across with these smaller places. And I think all of us around this table would be very happy to provide any kind of knowledge support in your effort of building it across other smaller places. Alexandra, let me come to you. We've been, of course, in conversation on many different forums, but give us a sense of how you and Europe and the literature festival tradition has sort of been impacted, but also more importantly, how you've been able to move beyond that. And perhaps if you also sort of dwell a little bit upon the collaborations that have come out of this pandemic.
Thank you, Sanjoy, and thank you for the invitation. It's really wonderful to be here, but also I have to say that seeing the video made me feel really nostalgic, because this time every year I would be getting ready to go to India and attend some of the festivals. And I have to say that the last visit I made to India was also the last international trip that I made last year. So I've been grounded since then. Being the last speaker means that almost everything has been said, and that there's not that much to add. LAF, you asked about the European festivals. Literature Across Frontiers, LAF, is a platform. We're not a festival. We work with festivals, and if anything, we are a kind of mini festival on wheels, because we bring writers to festivals, and what we have been doing, or we help with curation of program. And what we have been doing in India is that we have been bringing European writers to Indian festivals. We have also been bringing writers and translators together. We work a lot with translators because obviously any literary international work has translation at its core. So our work has been very much affected by what's happened, precisely because it all revolves around travel, around our motto is making literature travel. So what we do is not just work with festivals, we also organize residencies, either on an ad hoc basis, or we work with other organizations on more sustained programs of residencies. So what we faced this year was that we basically had to cancel everything, like everyone. We had to rethink what we're doing. And as Nick pointed out, the UK, and in our case, the Welsh government, because we are based in Wales, has been really generous and has responded very quickly to the situation. But at the same time, obviously the usual ways of funding have been affected. So there have been various rescue funds and so on, but that organizations applied to deal with the immediate situation. But we work with festivals. The festivals we work with really represent a wide range of models. And we work with very large festivals, which are city-based, like the Passaporta Festival in Brussels or the Cosmopolis Festival in Barcelona. And we also work with quite small grassroots festivals, which are run on really volunteer basis and have ridiculously small budgets. But sometimes you see that these are the models that are sometimes more resilient. And so what has been happening really across the board is very much the same. Zoom sessions or hybrid programming, and in some cases, I would say that, for instance, there has been what Nick described, or Janavi. I really like that idea of taking the viewer, taking the writer and the viewer on a walk. And this is actually what some of our partner festivals have been doing in their physical festivals, and then they would do it with the digital way of dealing with the situation. I'd give an example of the Poetry Festival in Berlin, which also organizes a poetry film festival, the Zebra Poetry Festival, which is a biennial festival. So they're very much attuned to connecting poetry with the visual. And they have come up with a really interesting model, interesting formats, which were partly filmed in various locations and are visually really much more appealing than the talking heads that we have all become accustomed to. We generally had to basically, speed up our learning, and because part of our funding has always come from the European Union, and they have been always asking the question, how do you deal with the digital shift? And in the past, we kind of thought, okay, we'll say something, you know, we'll make a few videos or something, or podcasts. But now we really had to address this. So I think we're not there. I don't know what the future will bring, because there has been this Zoom fatigue. We have been able to attend, a number of festivals all around the world, but in the end, you grow a bit tired, and also the writers become a bit tired. We have been recording conversations for some of our partner festivals, and I've had writers who said, "Look, I'm just completely exhausted. You know, I don't want to do it. I need a break." So. So I think we need to think about maybe different formats, and learn even more about the technology that will enable this. But I absolutely agree that the physical proximity, the excitement, the interaction with the audience is something that's absolutely irreplaceable. And also, for instance, what Palfest does, that they take their visitors on, both, I suppose, writers and other people who may be festival organizers who visit. And one of our colleagues went, I think, 2 years ago. They take them to see the country, to see where they are. I think that's really important, and it's something that some of our partners have been doing, especially in other parts of Europe. There's a lovely Croatian festival that literally takes the writers, across the country to different locations, and or a festival in Sicily that we have worked with, which happens in 3 locations. So. These are maybe the physical possibilities give us a kind of an impetus for, how we could be imagining the digital future. But one thing I want to say, being based in a location which is very much on the edges of Europe and, on the edges of the world in many ways, it creates a situation for you where you really feel that there is a kind of inequality. You're on the periphery. If you want to take part in meetings, if you want to, go and attend festivals, you have to travel always. You have to go there. I have noticed that it has become much more. This situation has brought us into a kind of position of equality. We're all sitting here, at our various devices. It's not always the laptop; it can be a phone or whatever, and we can discuss with others. But this is a model that's good for meetings, for brainstorming, and so on. But I think festivals hopefully will be able to go to a physical mode again soon.
Thank you, Alex. I totally agree with so much of what you said. One of the biggest problems, of course, has been how do you translate? I mean, even with JLF's Brave New World, the season that we started, as Namita said, we're at 4.8 million views with whatever 26 million reach or whatever it is. But how does that convert, dollar to cent? Because we are seeing for every £1 that we used to get in terms of sponsorship, today you're getting less than 8 pence or 8 pennies. But Nick, I want to just end with coming back to you for a second. I want to ask you, has this digital format made the author common by making him or her accessible in the very same way that television in many ways was, did to the crown or the queen, what we are seeing today? And earlier, it was really the access that different festivals had, that say Edinburgh had or any of our festivals had, to particular groups of writers, which made the festival special. But today, everybody has access and everybody can go online and everybody can listen to Margaret Atwood or Ron Pamuk or whatever. So how is that impact? Or how do you see that as an impact on this new world of ours? And when we go back to the physical, if it's about going back as opposed to going forward, what do you think will play out in the future?
These are such good questions, Sanjoy. Really, you put your finger on it. It was interesting for me listening to some of the other speakers, thinking about the difference between online and in real life. And I was thinking about Arundhati Roy, who came to Edinburgh in 2019, where she was interviewed by our First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. And the sense of an important event happening in front of the eyes of 750 people in that theatre was really palpable. And then in 2020, we invited Arundhati back, and she was interviewed by an Indian journalist based in Dubai. And she was broadcasting from her home in India. And one of the great things about it was that we could see inside her, she was sitting at her desk. We could see inside her house. So there was something special about seeing inside Arundhati Roy's house. Nevertheless, it was clear that that we were not the only ones who would be able to see inside her house, because she was doing a number of different online discussions during the course of last year. And then it was driven home to me by the writer David Mitchell, the author of Cloud Atlas, and we were launching his novel, Utopia Avenue, last year. And he said to me, Nick, after Edinburgh, I'm going to do another 20 or 25 events online. And I'm worried because if I say the same things about my characters and if I read the same sections from my novel, and any of my super fans who watch more than one of my events and see the same thing twice, then my brand as David Mitchell writer gets diminished. So your responsibility, Nick, is to create an event for me which is unique, where I say things which I will never repeat again. And so what we did was, because Utopia Avenue was a novel set in the 1960s of London's pop scene, which had some lyrics from songs. So we commissioned a folk singer, to create music from the lyrics that had been written in the novel. And he turned it into music, and we created a musical performance, a one-off. We played back the songs to David Mitchell, but of the lyrics that he'd written. And you could see in his face the joy. And you could see from the comments in the audience that they were really feeling this was something special. And that's really our responsibility. We cannot let our authors down by making them so ubiquitous that they're no longer special. We've got to take advantage of the access that these online events offer, but we've got to keep the specialness of the events we create. And that's down to us as organizers to be creative, to be innovative, and to really do special things with this medium we have.
Thanks, Nick. That was valuable. Janvi, Sabine, very quickly, I know we've run out of time, but very quickly, what is the role, therefore, taking from what Nick said, of the moderator? And how do you prep the moderator so that he or she is not just doing a flyby conversation, but is doing a conversation to bring out something that speaker or writer has not necessarily delved in before? What is their role?
So,
Janvi, go first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Janvi can start.
Yes. I had mentioned about the 2 sessions that we curated last year, where we went in the outdoors. So one of them was, I did both the sessions because both of them were in Nainital. So I was the moderator for both the sessions, really. Because of COVID times, other people could not travel. And you had to be there on camera outdoors. So the first session was with Dr. Alka Pandey, who's a historian, and she's written about 15 books on the Kama Sutra and the Devi, the goddesses, Shiv and Shakti. So she is a local of Nainital, and she spent about 4 or 5 months during COVID right here. So she was the right person and easily accessible for this session. And so we got together, we decided how to sort of curate it. We went to the location, we went to the temple, which is by the lakeside. This lake is pristine. It's, people used to say in the olden days, in the 1900s, it's got magical powers. The eyes of the Devi fell into this lake. So it is a story which is connected to our mythology, number one, the Hindu mythology. It's about the goddess, which is again very mystical, I would say. Plus the people in the mountains, they are great believers of the goddess. They have blind faith in the goddess. The goddess comes into them. They get hypnotized. They have these things called jagars in the evening, where a huge gathering comes by and the spirit goes inside one person and it's the goddess talking. So really, this was an interesting subject in an interesting backdrop, which was really scenic and relevant. It had a mix of history, it had a mix of culture, mysticism. So I think that was really important, and I think that was our best viewed session. So I think that's how deep one needs to sort of think, and in order to get the attention of the audience.
Sabine?
Okay. Yeah, before I get into that question, I want to say one point about the digital festival, because the physical festival is one of the effective ways of branding a city. We know Edinburgh, we know Jaipur, because the festivals these cities host. So when we have a digital festival, what are we branding? I mean, so we are nowhere, we are from everywhere, so there is no a festival's role as a sort of city branding tool is not happening. So that's where tourism departments may not be interested to sponsor the festivals, because they're not branding their city. So that's I wanted to make that point, because why I'm an old school physical festival guy is one of the reasons is this, because festival is all about the cities it hosts. Yeah. The second, as a moderator, I had my first experience, recently as a digital moderator with Amitabh Ghosh when we launched the Malayalam translation of his Gun Island. And it didn't go that well with me, because, I don't know, Shashi Tharoor was on one side, Amitabh Ghosh on the other side, and me and the translator, I was all at sea. That's my experience. So I'm not sure, but I'll be talking to my set of moderator when we do the festival, So I'm quite a bit skeptical about the whole thing. Yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Sabine. Amina, very quickly, there's been a question about funding. You're a small group of people running the festival. Have you been able to keep your team together, and how have you been able to fund the team in the absence of any funding as of now? How is that managed? How have you coped with that? I'll call you. Amina, you're on mute.
Sanjoy, actually, I run a publishing house, Lightstone Publishers, and the team is actually our staff who volunteer for the festival. So we don't have paid employees of the festival. They're actually employees of my publishing house who are volunteers. So that's actually how we have managed to survive. But I just wanted to say very quickly that I'm also thinking in terms of a hybrid festival, because I feel that it's important to get the panel in one place. So I thought that perhaps you could get the panelists together in one place, and yet the audience could be online, or the audience could also be just a small group in an outdoor venue. I thought that kind of a hybrid festival might work better than a purely festival online.
Totally agree with you. With the Jaipur Literature Festival, we found this new restored fort by Diggi. It's called the Diggi Fort, about an hour and a half outside of Jaipur, where we will be recording some of the sessions live. But of course, the issue is, how do you get international writers to come in? The fort is fine as a great backdrop, but what do you put into the fort? So that's still a challenge. Alexandra, again, a quick question to you. You've answered it already in your earlier this thing. How many Skillshare projects have you enabled if at all, and in an age of learning online, be it workshops or masterclasses?
Well, this is a really good question because it's something that we should be doing more than we have. A lot of our time at the beginning was taken up by really redesigning everything that we had been planning and trying to bring the writers that we had planned to take somewhere physically, bringing them together online. We've had some meetings with our partner festivals to discuss how they have been dealing with this situation. And also we are part of a network which we really co-funded, which is a network of organizations that promote their national literatures and provide funding for its translation. So we also have had some meetings with these organizations discussing how they have fared and the impact of the pandemic on the book market in their country and so on. I have spoken in some sessions for book fairs, for example. Most recently, I spoke at a session on a panel at a book fair of independent publishers in the Czech Republic, and we also did a session for a book fair in Greece, for example. So there have been opportunities, but they were often generated by not by us, but by the various partners. So this is really how we work. We respond to requests, and we sometimes have brainstorming sessions about common projects, but often we would respond to an invitation to prepare a session.
Thanks, Alan. Yasmin, last question to you. Is this the age of collaboration? Is this the point, as Sabine said, where geography doesn't matter, place doesn't matter? Can we all come together? Do we have to have geographically specific festivals? Or can we come together or bond together around causes, around the need of the moment, and create a larger opportunity, a larger voice, especially from something that you're coming from?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we have to be thankful that that is also the advantage of the medium that we're left to rely on. But also more broadly, I mean, if the pandemic has demonstrated anything, it's that both our vulnerabilities and our crises, but also our abilities to come together as communities, are all interconnected, and there's no escape from one another, whether it's in terms of the problems that we face or our, the potential solutions for them. So absolutely, yes.
Yasmin, Alexandra, Amina, Janvi, Nick, Sabine, Namita Gokhale, thank you all very much. This was absolutely fascinating. Yes, time is short. Nick, perhaps it's the time to kickstart the consortium again, bring it back, look at how we can perhaps have authors in specific coming together as a festival speaking, which we can all share and broadcast together. We will look forward to inviting you back again to our platforms. We're sort of doing it region-wise, traveling across the world to try and get as many voices together. But much appreciated. Congratulations on all the enormous amount of work that you all have done through the year. More power to you. We know how difficult it's been to sustain, to self-motivate, to wake up in the morning, to dress up, get out there and do what we want to do, which has been so important. On that happy note, Suraj, back to you.
Thank you, Sanjoy. Thank you, Alexandra Buchler, Amina Saeed, Janvi Prasad, Nick Barley, Sabine Iqbal, and Yasmin El Rifai for this extremely insightful session and for being part of our virtual Festival Directors Roundtable. And thank you, Sanjoy, for being a fabulous moderator and driving this session so wonderfully. Thank you all. And thank you all for watching and being a great audience. We hope you all enjoyed this conversation and will join us for another such roundtable on Tuesday, 26 January, where directors from around the world will join us to discuss and share their views on similar topics. Till then, stay safe and see you soon.
Passion of the people on stage. They're inspiring all these people, such an incredible turnout to listen to all these people.
I've come to this bookstore 4 or 5 times, and every time I walk away with another book.
I've been to festivals all over the world, but I've never been to a festival that is anything like it. It is more enjoyable, more exciting, more vibrant, and it's free.
It crosses boundaries and limits and heritages, and that is brilliant.
All the speakers, they made us so much clear and love for the literature more and more, and they updated us that what's the new upcoming, and I'm thankful to JLF.
And it's nice to see so many, especially young people, interested in literature. It's amazing to see how many of them just keep coming back and sitting through all the panels and taking down notes.
It's a very great thing to have this festival in Jaipur. So we come here, we get a lot of knowledge, we can cluster our knowledge here. Around 6 sessions, and whether it's Samvad or whether in Charbagh, everything together. Isn't it wonderful for each and every one to experience this? Especially the ones in school, to know that there is value in books and not always on the mobiles, sticking to it every time. Well, it is indeed the Kumbh of literature.
Very pleased with particularly how the performance poetry has gone. It's something I think we've been weak on in the past. We've had some very good sessions from the Arab world, some remarkable sessions from West Africa.
And what I love about JLF is that it makes space for poetry. Poetry is not often given as much time and love as it gets here.
Our duty, as we see it, is to bring the world to India and India to the world.
The only way to transform society